The local coffee shop bustled with its usual morning energy. Steaming espresso machines hissed, cups clinked against saucers, and cheerful chatter filled the air. Karen swept in like a force of nature, her tailored blazer and meticulously styled hair announcing her presence as much as the sound of her heels against the tiled floor. She approached the counter, already rehearsing her order in her head, though the barista knew it by heart. "Venti soy latte, extra foam," she said with the confidence of someone used to being heard. The barista nodded, sliding the cup toward her within moments. Karen grabbed it and turned to face the room, scanning for the perfect seat. But then she saw him. Near the window, a man sat with the ease of someone who didn't care for the chaos around him. He wore a simple button-down shirt, jeans, and a red MAGA cap perched snugly on his head. That hat turned her latte sour. To Karen, it wasn't just a hat. It was a symbol, a red beacon of everything she loathed. Her grip on the cup tightened as she zeroed in on him. "Not in my cafe," she thought, marching toward him, fueled by righteous indignation. He barely noticed her approach, his attention on his phone and the coffee he sipped like a connoisseur. "Excuse me," she barked, her voice cutting through the ambient noise like a knife. Conversations nearby faltered, and heads turned. The man looked up, his expression calm, almost amused. "Yes," he said, setting his cup down deliberately. "Do you really think it's appropriate to wear that hat in public?" she demanded, pointing as if accusing him of a crime. He raised an eyebrow. "Good morning to you too," he replied, his voice smooth and measured, like someone trying not to laugh at a toddler's tantrum. Karen's nostrils flared. "Don't play coy. That hat is offensive. It represents everything wrong with this country." The man took another sip of his coffee, the picture of serenity. "It's just a hat, ma'am." "It's not just a hat," Karen shot back, her voice rising. "It's a statement, and one that's not welcome here." By now, the cafe had fallen almost silent. Patrons watched with a mix of curiosity and disbelief, some discreetly filming with their phones. "Well," the man said, leaning back in his chair with a relaxed air. "You're entitled to your opinion, just as I'm entitled to wear this hat." That did it. Her face turned a deep crimson. Without thinking, Karen leaned over the table and spat at him. The room collectively gasped. His previously calm demeanor shifted, his eyes narrowing as he wiped his shirt with a napkin. Around them, the silence buzzed with tension, the air heavy with the collective judgment of the witnesses. "Ma'am," he said quietly, his voice now dangerously calm, "you may want to rethink your choices." The cafe stood still, waiting for the next move in a drama none of them had expected with their morning coffee. The cafe erupted into a cacophony of whispers and the unmistakable sound of camera shutters clicking. Patrons exchanged wide-eyed glances, their attention glued to the scene unraveling before them. Karen stood tall, her chest puffed with self-righteous fury. To her, this was a victory, a righteous crusade for justice. Turning to the gathering crowd, she thrust her finger toward the man. "This man is spreading hate," she declared, her voice carrying the dramatic weight of a courtroom accusation. "And I won't stand for it." The man, still seated, casually reached for a napkin and began dabbing at the spit on his shirt. His movements were deliberate, almost theatrical in their calmness, as if he had all the time in the world. When he finally looked up, his voice was quiet but sharp as a blade. "Ma'am," he said, his tone like the first rumble of distant thunder, "I suggest you sit down before you embarrass yourself further." Karen let out a bitter laugh, her voice dripping with scorn. "Embarrass myself? You should be ashamed. People like you deserve to be called out for your ignorance and bigotry." The tension in the cafe was electric, and the manager finally decided to intervene. A wiry man with a nervous smile, he approached cautiously, holding his hands up like he was entering a hostage negotiation. "Ma'am," he began, his voice trembling slightly, "we don't tolerate harassment here. Please, let's keep things civil." Karen spun on her heel to face him, her indignation flaring like a bonfire. "Harassment?" she scoffed. "I'm defending our community. This man's hat is harassment." The man in question pushed back his chair with an ominous scrape, rising to his full height. Towering over Karen, his presence silenced even the bravest whispers in the room. "I'll handle this," he said to the manager, who practically scurried away, grateful to be out of the crossfire. Then, turning his full attention to Karen, his voice took on a new edge. "You don't know who I am, do you?" Karen crossed her arms, her lips curling in a disdainful sneer. "Oh, let me guess. You're some self-proclaimed patriot who thinks he's above everyone else." Without a word, the man reached into his back pocket and pulled out a leather badge holder. In one smooth motion, he flipped it open, revealing the unmistakable glint of a gold badge. "Captain Daniel Foster, City Police Department," he said, his voice steady, but with a razor-sharp authority that sliced through Karen's bravado. The cafe fell utterly silent. A fork clattered to the floor somewhere in the back, but no one moved to pick it up. Karen's mouth opened as if to say something, but no sound came out. Around them, the crowd leaned in closer, their phones capturing every moment of her unraveling. The power dynamic had shifted, and it wasn't in her favor. Karen's jaw dropped as she stared at the badge. Around them, patrons began to whisper, their cameras now focused solely on her. You're a cop," she stammered. "Not just a cop," Daniel said, his voice carrying a quiet authority. "I'm the captain, and you've just assaulted an officer." Her confidence crumbled. "Assaulted? That's ridiculous. I didn't lay a hand on you." Daniel tilted his head. "Spitting on someone is legally considered assault in this state. I'd suggest you educate yourself before you start making public scenes." Karen's face drained of color. I didn't know. I thought..." "You thought wrong," Daniel interrupted. "And now, everyone here has it on video." Around them, patrons nodded, some holding up their phones as proof. Karen's bravado was replaced by sheer panic. She looked around, searching for an ally, but all she saw were disapproving stares. Daniel leaned in slightly, his voice low but firm. "I could press charges right now, but I won't. Not because you don't deserve it, but because I have more important things to do than waste my time on someone like you." As Daniel turned to leave, the cafe erupted into applause. Karen stood frozen, her latte trembling in her hand. One by one, the patrons returned to their seats, the moment captured forever in videos that would soon flood social media. The manager approached Karen, his tone curt. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." "But she began, only to be cut off. "Now," he said firmly. With her head bowed, Karen shuffled out of the cafe, her once fiery confidence reduced to ashes. Outside, she could hear the whispers of onlookers, the occasional snicker reminding her of the humiliation she'd just endured. As for Daniel, he returned to his precinct later that day, his phone buzzing with messages from friends and colleagues who'd already seen the viral video. He chuckled to himself, shaking his head. It wasn't the first time someone had underestimated him because of the hat, and it probably wouldn't be the last. But for now, he was content knowing that justice had been served. Not in a courtroom, but in the court of public opinion.